With the Galactic Republic rebranded under the title of the First Galactic Empire, as Star Wars fans, we often wondered what happened to the clone army of the Republic. Were they absorbed into the ranks of the Stormtrooper Corps or phased out over time? Well, the new canon that comes with the Bad Batch and Star Wars Rebels seems to offer a different explanation from that of the old expanded universe. Welcome to my channel. If you're as much of a Star Wars fan as I am, and don't want a lot of negativity, then you've come to the right place, because that's all I talk about, and I upload, whenever I feel like it, so to speak. So if Star Wars is your thing, go on and hit that subscribe button to show your support for this one-man show, and join the growing army of Star Wars fanatics. Now, on with the one-man show. First, to explain, I see clones in live action, and I get excited to talk about them. Sorry for that. We came to know and love the clone troopers of the Clone Wars through the aptly named Clone Wars animated series. Clones like Rex, Wolf, and Fives were among the best written characters of the entire series, with the arc of Fives being ultimately one of the saddest. I give a big tall glass of go fuck yourself to Clone Commander Fox of the Coruscant Guard. I'm glad he finally got what he deserved at the hands of Darth Vader. If you haven't read the comic, go do so. Okay, I got a little sidetracked. Seriously, though. Fox. Yeah. Anyways, we know what happened to the aforementioned clones, Rex, Gregor, and Wolf. But what about the millions of nameless clones that we don't see all the time? Well, let's see if we can figure it out together. With the addition of the Star Wars Andor series, there's been some confusion as to what the troopers invading Ferrix are, those shown in Cassian Andor's flashback sequence. I've made a video or two on this, so I really don't want to go into the details again. Instead, I'll link the video in the description and at the end of this video. But there have been quite a few discussions here as to what those troopers are. Are they clones? Are they early stormtroopers? I'm not going to rehash this for fun. I'm saying it because the timeline of the events of Andor's Episode 7 are really vague. But there are Star Wars series that can give us a clue as to what has happened to the remaining clones of the Grand Army of the Republic, aside from the Andor series. The first show to come out gave a sense as to where they went. It came to us in the form of Star Wars Rebels. If you haven't seen it, too bad. I'm going to spoil the damn thing for you. Star Wars Rebels begins around the same time as the current timeline of the Star Wars Andor series, after the flashbacks, when Cassian Andor is a strapping lad with a strong back and a hatred for the Empire. But yeah, Rebels takes place during this time, roughly, or 10 years after the rise of the Empire, if you want to get technical. We get to catch up with Rex, Wolf, and Gregor, all of which have retired from military service. There's no telling for how long, though. Wait a minute, didn't Rex fake his death when he and Ahsoka Tano escaped from Order 66? Yeah, it's confusing. Okay, I may have to come back to that another time. Remind me of that. But the Imperial officer told them to retire in peace and thanked them for their service, in a nutshell. So, it looks like the clone captain and his commander counterparts were not killed off. That's a good sign, I guess. But there is still the question of the other millions of clones, brothers, all watching each other's backs during the Clone Wars. So let's go ahead and take a look into the back timeline, or back to the future, back to the past, whatever, to see if we can figure it out. From here, we'll go to the Bad Batch Season 1. This series takes place at the beginning of Order 66 and just after the aftermath. After the aftermath. That doesn't make sense. It was during the aftermath of Order 66. Jeez, English much? Anyway, the Bad Batch shows the transition from Republic to Empire and begins the transition from using clone troopers to using stormtroopers, all part of the Tarkin Initiative, also aptly named for Grand Moff Tarkin, who is the architect of the Tarkin Initiative. You get my point. I'd love to say clones were just phased out. I'd love to say that they got to live out their speedy lives in the Empire, serving under the same regime but under a new name. That's what they were created for. No, they were created for war. And with the Clone Wars over, they would have to transition to a peace force or occupation force, like a police force, I guess. Force. Not exactly what they were created for, except for the Coruscant Guard.
You're my boy, Blue!
It's noticed in the Bad Batch that clones were expensive, that it was costing the Empire too much money to keep the clones coming, especially since they only had a life expectancy of half a normal human. The argument was made that anything other than clones wouldn't be as effective by the Kaminoans. Too bad, says Tarkin. But what we see in the Bad Batch is something horrific. The clone home of Kamino gets destroyed. The Kaminoan Prime Minister gets killed and the clones are moved away. But it seems as soon as the transition to the Empire begins, conscripted citizens begin filling the ranks of the troopers, with the first of which being a special unit attached to, Target, Scope. Nah, I'm teasing. It's Crosshair of Clone Force 99, the Bad Batch. He takes them on their first mission to put down some partisans led by none other than Saw Gerrera himself, but they hesitate when it comes to being an execution squad, already showing their lack of resolve and discipline. The Stormtrooper Corps really is inferior. But be that as it may, the Stormtroopers begin coming into the ranks more and more, with a transitional armor of white and black. Not quite the armor we remember from classic Star Wars tales, but still reminiscent and a far cry from that of the Phase 2 clone armor. With the destruction of the cloning facility on Kamino, the clones were not destroyed. They were spared, taken off-world. Yay! Yeah. They became a mindless murdering group, but we Star Wars fans still love these guys and still hold on to hope that they'll do the right thing one day. The next bit of evidence that we have comes from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, where we see a homeless clone of the 501st sitting, begging for change on the street. This series takes place 5 years after the events of Order 66. Is it significant, or is it just nostalgia? Even though it was meant as a throwback or nostalgia for our favorite troopers, it still shows a clone 5 years after the destruction of Kamino wearing full armor, with helmet in hand. He was older, showing his rapid aging, but he was still geared up. We don't see this in our own world. When a veteran takes to the streets with no other option, he isn't in full battle dress. So it shows an in-canon clone fresh out of the military, 5 years after the Empire dissolved the Grand Army of the Republic. So that means the clones weren't merely replaced, but retired after they hit a certain age beyond usefulness to the Empire. Stormtroopers would have been folded in and replaced the aging clones as necessary. We tend to think of all the clones as old by the time the Empire takes over, or grown, or even a few years afterward the Empire taking over. But remember, there were clone cadets on Kamino, from the really young all the way up to the graduating classes, with the older clones phasing out sooner and the younger possibly lasting up to 10 to 15 years under the Empire, given they weren't killed off following the Bad Batch. But that makes me wonder, why was there a fully dressed clone in the Kenobi series if they were being killed off years after the hostile takeover? Why were Rex, Wolf, and Gregor thanked for their service and let live? Let's bring it back to the Star Wars Andor series for just a second. No, I won't spend much time on it. I already did that before. But yeah, Andor. We see troops in the shiny clone armor marching the streets of Ferrix when Cassian was between 13 to 15 years old. This is after the fall of the Empire. These troops could very well be one of the last classes of clones to come from Kamino, spared to fulfill their duty. The Empire had already paid for them and their outdated armor, so why not? I generally don't throw away something I've paid for if it's still useful to me either. But that's my conclusion, that the clones would have been folded into the Imperial ranks and used as long as their age permitted, just as we saw with Crosshair, all while conscripts started filling in the holes as the aging brothers retired. Not killed off, retired. I guess I could have made this video about 15 seconds long, but what fun is that? And there was a lot to go off to get to the point I was trying to make. Oh, I mentioned the old expanded universe. The cloning program stopped when clones of the 501st were sent to put down a rebellion happening on Camino in the old expanded universe. They were wiped out. I kind of would have liked to have seen how that played out, but we get what we get, I suppose. Makes more sense to utilize your possession as long as you can, I guess. What do you think happened to the clones, though? Do you think the Bad Batch Season 2 or further episodes of the Star Wars Andor series will tell a different story? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like the words coming out of my mouth,
don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
Then hit the like button to help boost this video. This is Gerald from Star Wars Fanatics signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.